A common shape that you need to represent on a map is the footprint of a building. Most buildings have rectilinear footprints, so for instance, By Hall here has a bunch of different rectangles that are sort of put together, but they're oblique to the edge of the page, so you can't use smart guides to help you maintain right angles when you draw them. The axis of By Hall here is 10 or 12 degrees off of the up and down axis. Moreover, it's fairly noticeable when you try to draw a building freehand. So if I was to make a new layer here and just get the pen tool out and start tracing by hall, it's really hard to keep my angles right angles. Even if I spent a little more time on this than I am, it would be pretty noticeable that this building was not drawn very accurately. So you can see that the corners aren't square, and it just doesn't really look right. It looks kind of like a 2-year-old drew it. So in this video, I'll show you the technique I use for drawing buildings. The first thing I'll do is just throw out this freehand sketch that I made, and I'm going to make this air photo semi-transparent so that we can work on it a little bit easier without and still see the thing that we're drawing. So I'm going to give it a 30% opacity, and it'll sort of fade into the background there. I'll lock the photo layer and call this new layer buildings. So my first step is to get out my rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle sort of on top of that wing of By Hall, but obviously it doesn't fit exactly, and I'm going to make the stroke a lot smaller so that we can see through that rectangle. So then I'll come over, and I've got that rectangle selected. I'm going to grab the rotate tool, and if you click with the rotate tool the first time, it'll move. Maybe you can just barely see where that sort of cyan center point is, but if you click, it'll place that center point so that that becomes the point of rotation. And so I've put that on the corner of the building and the corner of my rectangle, and I'm just rotating the rectangle so that it's becoming on axis with the building. And this isn't going to be perfect, but it will be a fairly good representation. And I can get my selection tool back out and just resize that rectangle slightly so that it better fits what seems like the shape, the footprint of By Hall there. Great. So now I have my first shape, and this is my base shape. It's the shape that I'm going to make the rest of my sketch based off of, and it will provide the orientation for all of the other blocks that I'm going to build. So that's the last time in making the footprint of By Hall that I'll use the rotate tool, because I want all of the other sort of blocks for By Hall to be rotated at the exact same angle. So now that I've got this one, I'm going to come up and hit copy, and then I again get to use my paste in front tool, or Control F. So I'll hit that, and now I've got another rectangle that's placed directly on top of this rectangle that I can edit. Just with grabbing those handles, I can pull it down and use that to form the shape of this other wing of By Hall. So I've got that right there, and I'm just going to copy that and paste that in place. So I've got yet another rectangle that I can use to form that, and I'm essentially just going to keep stacking these rectangles on top of each other that are rotated at exactly the same angle until I've approximated the shape of By Hall. And it's important that they're overlapping a bit, because in this next step, once I've got rectangles that describe the general footprint of the whole building, my next step is going to be to select all of them and come up to Window and get the Pathfinder tool, and once again use this unite function to make them all into the same shape. So I'll undo that and do it again. It's essentially taking all of these rectangles that are overlapped and merging them where they overlap in order to produce a single outline, which is this path right here. And now if we give that some fill, you can see that that's a pretty good approximation of the shape of By Hall. And if you zoom out, you can see that it looks much better than that sketch did. All of the angles are right angles. All of these blocks are aligned at the same angle with each other. And it is just a lot uh, more convincing than our original sketch model.